Greetings to our friends and visitors, and welcome back once again to our English edition, in which we have prepared a translated version of today's news stories for those of you who are more comfortable in the English language. The state budget has suffered a loss of 16 billion lek during the first 6 months of this year. The head of the State Supreme Audit, Buyar Leskay, reported this loss at the Economic Commission. And while it is not yet publicly known where the money has gone, the biggest discrepancies have been found in the hydrocarbon sector. Mr. Leskay said, "We have discovered a violation involving 16 billion lek over the first 6 months of this year. The damage is higher than it has been in past years. In 2014, the damage due to violations of this kind was 11 billion lek. The auditing director clarified that there was a great deal of tax evasion discovered during the audit of the hydrocarbon sector, and that the recommendations by high officials are not being implemented. The head of the SSA asked for a law that would solidify the acceptable level of public debt in the Constitution itself. He said, "A law that specifies the allowed level of public debt must be established as part of the Constitution. We recommend the amount of 60%. I insist that a law of this kind must be established as soon as possible, because currently the public debt is already at 70%, said Mr. Leskay. The Bank of Albania has noticed that the nation's banks are easing their conditions for the giving of loans. This is the result of an observation by the BOA on the credit sector for the second quarter of the year. The BOA also observes that there is a decrease in loan requests from enterprises of every size, from small to large businesses and industries. The opposite is true for private citizens, however, who have requested an increased number of loans from Albania's banks. Bad debt is still at an unfavorable level, and it continues to negatively affect the bank's willingness to give loans to businesses, especially when coupled with considerations of Albania's economic situation as a whole. The BOA has noticed that banks are decreasing their commissions and lengthening the maturity timelines on their loans. However, their likeliness to request collateral has not changed, because bad debts are still a major issue. The financial experts are expecting positive developments in lending, especially in the private sector, but they do not predict a high number of loan requests from businesses. The Bank of Albania has announced that the citizens' faith in the country's economy is increasing. The same is true for a portion of the business sector, according to the BOA. The observations are in the context of an analysis of the second quarter of this year. The observation found that the citizens' trust in the construction and commerce sectors is falling, primarily because of financial problems and not enough demand to support the industry. However, in other sectors, the Bank of Albania notes that the economic sentiment indicator rose by 5.1 points during the second quarter of this year. The central bank experts identify a growing confidence on the part of consumers in the economy, as well as an increased confidence in the service industry. This increase of consumer confidence reportedly comes from an improvement of the overall business climate, overall demand, and the improved financial situation of the citizens. The Greek foreign minister met with his Albanian counterpart, Dietmir Bushati, during his visit to the country's capital city. Shortly after the two foreign ministers wrapped up their meeting, they held a joint press conference in which the relations between the neighboring countries were portrayed in a positive light. They spoke about the strategic relationship between the countries and said that the past problems, such as the maritime agreement and the issue of the Cham property, will be solved based on the internationally provided rights. Minister Kotsias said that there are still a number of problems that need solutions. He expressed his confidence that the maritime agreement will be solved according to the international rights, and that the solution will not be merely unilateral. Minister Bushati backed up this idea, saying that the solution must follow the European spirit. He said, "Since it was the very first visit of the Greek foreign minister, it was a good opportunity to review our progress and our bilateral cooperation. As neighboring countries, we appreciate the dialogue and cooperation according to the international standards, as the only opportunity to overcome the obstacles that we have inherited from the past, which still carry a political and emotional burden. It is important to invest in the spirit of trust, because our relationship is more than necessary. I talked with my Greek counterpart about the issues we consider to be important to our bilateral agenda. We are working to find solutions, and in the case that we do not reach an agreement, we will announce the points on which we do not agree, said Bushati. The Greek foreign minister said that the school textbooks and the Treaty of Neighborhood and Security that was signed in 1996 need to be reviewed. We are not in a state of war with Albania, he said. Regarding the removal of the law on war and properties, every citizen can address their claims to the Greek courts, said Mr. Kotsias. The two ministers agreed to work on finding a solution to the maritime agreement, and overall, the press conference conveyed an attitude of trust and friendship between them. It was culminated with the signing of 3 agreements on tourism, agriculture, and EU integration. The Democratic Party chairman has given warnings about protests that are coming in autumn. He said that these protests will be supported by the citizens and that they will be held through every city in Albania. Bushati claimed that the majority is reviewing the state budget without consulting the opposition. He accused the government of plunging the citizens into debt. Basha said, "The Prime Minister has ordered a review of the state budget without any transparency. They will remove the planned investments in roads, schools, and hospitals because the money has been stolen." Rama and Meta violated the democratic standards of the elections. New facts are being revealed every day and added to the list of concerns in the OSCE report. There was vote buying that took place in these elections. There were citizens who were not allowed to vote. In these elections, Rama and Meta abandoned the idea of decriminalization and brought more incriminated people to power. Instead of decriminalizing the parliament, as we agreed on December 24th, Rama and Meta filled the local governments with incriminated people. 150 million lek were stolen from the state budget. The Albanians are immersed in debt. Taxes and tariffs have increased, and unemployment and poverty have gone up. Revenues have fallen because of smuggling, corruption, and tax evasion, said the Democratic leader. Mr. Basha also expressed concern about the high number of asylum seekers after the figures recently made public by the German Interior Ministry, which listed Albania as the second source country after Syria. The citizens of Bulqiza are continuing their efforts to leave the country and to find asylum in Germany. There are long lines of citizens applying for biometric passports with the intention of heading for Germany. Residents from the more remote villages are traveling for hours, along with their families, to stand in passport application lines. The number of residents that have left the city since December are alarming. In the city of Mat, there have been 7,000 people leaving the city in only the last 2 months. That's the end of our edition for today. Thank you so much for choosing Aura News as your source for daily news updates in English. Have a great night and see you tomorrow.